Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever it is in the world that you are, and welcome in to the iFormula League F1 Season 5 round number 9 here from my favourite racetrack to ever exist, the Japanese Grand Prix circuit. Absolutely glorious race we have for you today. I'll quickly throw up the track map, the good old figure of 8 as we all know and love it. The Suzuka International Racing Course. Very tricky corners around this circuit, incredible commitment needed from the drivers, and it's definitely a circuit that, although it doesn't have the elevation change necessarily, it still has a big challenge associated with it. You know, you talk to these drivers about what they think of the circuit and the fact that you've got the S's really early on and make it really hard to overtake and keep close, able to just generate this sort of battle between you two. But then you get the section through, you exit Spoon. If you get a good exit through Spoon and you start slipstreaming from the car in front, when you go down towards 130R, your eyes looking at the car in front, making sure that you can set up that move. And if you go for it through 130R and you make it stick, you could be the stuff of legends around here. Suzuka definitely has some history. I mean, and what can you say about the culture that Japan has for cars? I mean, they love motorsport. They love everything about it. They absolutely adore all things motor racing. But of course, I am your commentator, Alyssa, today. And, you know, I'm excited. I've missed a week, admittedly. I did miss a week of racing last week at Hungaroring, which I heard was a little bit spicy for some people. Some people not having great results. But we're now back, and I will quickly read you through the current championship standings and where we're looking so far this season. Of course, Riley Jacob, no change from last week, except obviously the fact that Ben is now that little bit closer. Riley Jacob on 195 points is currently not here today, and I'm not sure if he will be joining us later on, but he isn't here at the moment, so potentially there will be a change up the top. If Ben Goldthorpe does well here, he will definitely overtake Riley for the lead of this championship. Ben Goldthorpe on 187 points, followed by one of his teammates in Rolly Shilter with 186 points. So really close between the top three. And then we move into the Inten flat-out sim racing team of Gianluca Iliano on 160 points. Then Oyvind Hoogland, who is here today, is on 155 points, so really wants to try and beat Gianluca just to make sure that he can get ahead of that Inten flat-out sim racing car to put himself in 4th position for the championship overall. So still all to play for, with only a few rounds left as well. I believe we only have 3 more rounds to go after today. So we have today, the round number 9, Road America next week. Sorry, not next week, the week after that. And then we move on to the Canadian Grand Prix circuit the week after that, followed off by the Brazilian Grand Prix for the final round. And of course, you know, I always like to talk about these drivers and potentially the strategies they're going to have during qualifying. I mean, we're already seeing it. Ben Goldthorpe managing to slipstream, I believe that was Frederick Larson there, near the end of the qualifying lap. And let's bring everyone up to speed. What are the qualifying lap times so far? Ben Goldthorpe with 129.3, currently leading the way from Fabian Blitz, who has actually seen a little bit of a resurgence from when I last watched, at least. Fabian Blitz now currently sitting around about 7/10 off Ben Goldthorpe, so you know, it's really good to see the Audi team start to push back in and start making a name for themselves, because we know that they should be quick. You know, they've got a lot of backing to say that they are. And, yeah, it's just going to be really cool to see more teams fighting for that top spot of our podiums every single week. And, of course, as always, if you do want to get yourself involved, then all of the information you need is in the descriptions, as always. And why not? Join us for next season. See if you've got what it takes to become the next IFL champion. Because, you know, that's what it's all about, right? And I have also realized that there is, I apologize for all the stuff happening on the screen at the moment, but there is voice chat enabled, so I need to turn that off, because we don't want people to be listening to what the drivers are saying, if we can help it. As cool as it would be to have radio messages, I would have to go through the process and trying to filter them, and you know, that's not something I have the manpower for when I'm also trying to, you know, run the cameras and everything else. But I will put the timing up on the screen for you all so you can see how long we've got left of the session. Currently 19 minutes left of this qualifying session, and at the moment it looks like it's an intense sim racing 1-2-3 with Jesus Altuve there in P4. And you know, Jesus is another driver that if he can get on it and he can do well here, you know, moving forward, I reckon he's going to be one to watch out for. You know, he's been sort of around about the midfield, but I think that's more on racecraft than his actual race pace. So, really nice to see him start to improve both aspects, and hopefully we can have an exciting race because of it. I mean, more guys closer to the top is always good for the viewers and obviously myself, because we get to see more action, more people fighting, more dive bombs as well. And everyone loves a good bit of a dive bomb, don't they? That's what it's all about. Nice, respectful racing where we try not to take each other out. Currently seeing Øyvind Haugland currently up. Purple in sectors 2, 3, and 4. Moving into Spoon. This corner so crucial to get right. Really have to be hesitant on the throttle, though, if you don't want to mess it up. Going into 130R now. Let's see just how fast Øyvind Haugland's daring to go. That does seem mighty quick indeed. Gonna slowly start to see him come through the Casio triangle on exit. What's he got in the locker? Is it pole position? He's going to go all the way to the inside, hug the inside line, hoping that he can pull off pole, and indeed he does with a 128.587. So the Racing Lab team come back after a little bit of a break, and Øyvind Haugland immediately back to the top. Absolutely no questions asked. Ben Goldthorpe is close, but not quite close enough. I do wonder whether or not Ben has it in the locker, if he's got the pace available to him. Without a slipstream, it'll be pretty difficult, I would imagine. Trying to find just 2/10 doesn't sound like a lot, but could just be potentially getting on the throttle a little bit better here in the hairpin. We're going to see, can Ben improve on his lap time? At the moment, it doesn't look like he is. It's looking like this lap is pretty much a write-off at the moment. I think potentially this could have been an outlap with how slow Sector 1 was. Or potentially got blocked a little bit. So we'll see whether or not he can improve on his next lap. Jacob Bisa currently improving on his lap. Jesus doing the same. Troy Banks doing the same. So still more fighting to be done in the midfield. We're going to start seeing potentially that fight for 5th, 6th, 7th start to heat up just a little bit more. Jesus actually going purple here in the 3rd sector, so let's jump on board with Jesus as Ben starts his lap. Just keep an eye on Ben, of course, because he is currently in a battle for pole position between himself and Øyvind through Spoon, keeping it nice and tidy as Jesus. Let's see whether or not he has a purple sector in his locker. If not, it's flat out through 130R. He was actually down on his personal best through there, so not the greatest. Flat out through 130R. He's going to break for the Casio triangle very late indeed. Does he nail it? A little bit too much curb, I think. And it's not going to be a particularly fast time. Maybe lost a couple tenths there. But let's see if it was enough. It doesn't look like it was. So Jesus not improving on his lap time. You're going to have to pull off the side. Troy Banks does improve on his lap time, but not enough to overtake Jesus for now. Frank Bisa currently not improving either. Volker is managing to improve and puts himself 10th fastest at the moment with a 1:30.3. So 10 minutes of the qualifying session gone. We have another 15 to go. And who's everyone got for the top end of quali? Who has the top position? At the moment, it's Øyvind Haugland, and I would put my money on him staying exactly where he is. That 1:28.5 is a very, very competitive time indeed. So that's who I've got at the top. I don't think Ben can do it. But who knows? Maybe I've just commentator cursed Øyvind. Told him that he's going to do well, and who knows what will happen. Just going to make sure that I can keep this up to date. Also, one other thing you've probably noticed already, a new feature, thank you to the guys over at the iRacing live timing, or the SDK, as Rolly Schilter unfortunately sends it a little bit too hard through Spoon, gets on the throttle a little bit too early, and that is unfortunately not an improvement for him. But we can actually now see the tyre compounds that people are using, so we can take a look at tyre strategy used throughout the race. Most people, you would imagine, going either softs, mediums, or medium softs. However, potentially, now we can see whether or not there are any alternate strategies. Frank Bisa improving, putting himself 12th fastest. If he can find one more 10th, he will put himself ahead of the secondary Bisa racing team, which is Scuderia Bisaroso, I think is how you pronounce it, but I'm sure Frank will correct me if that's wrong. But at the moment himself, you know, doing well, putting himself 12th fastest, had good results last time out with a couple of points finishes, so looking to try and continue the trend of just stay alive seems to be the strategy for the Bisa racing team at the moment, and it is working. Jacob, unfortunately, last week out, was not in the greatest of races, but hey, these things happen. You know, it's how you bounce back that determines who you are as a driver. Or some sort of, you know, saying. I'm not entirely sure if there is one, actually. It's currently Øyvind Haugland still not really improving on his lap time. Not really able to get close either. Ben Goldthorpe, kind of the same thing. Looks like they've kind of gotten everything, and just as I say that, Ben does improve, but nowhere near enough. Frederick Larson also not able to get into the 128s just yet, but currently the fastest of those who haven't. If you do put yourself in the 128s, there isn't a guarantee that you will be near Ben either. You know, Ben's currently on a 128.79, Øyvind is on a 128.59, and if Frederick does a 128.99, then, you know, 2/10 gap between each of them. That would just be a story, wouldn't it? Everyone 2/10 apart, moving through qualifying. Still a very tight battle between Frederick, Gianluca, and Rolly Schilter. All within 2/10 of each other between Frederick and Rolly. And then moving further back, Fabian Blitz, 2/10 off Rolly Schilter as well. So it's looking like it's going to be a really closely contested battle for the third place spot. But it looks as though Øyvind Haugland and Ben Goldthorpe kind of have the pace to really just push this time out. Fabian Blitz currently improving in the Audi, or the GSE racing by Audi, I should say. Improving on his lap time, will that put him any faster? 129.1, so he's close to the 128s, but it's not there quite yet. Øyvind Haugland improving through Sector 3, purple through Sector 4, of course. If you already had the fastest and you improve, then you will get a purple. Keeps it nice and tidy through Spoon. I wouldn't be surprised to see him now improve even further. We will jump on board through 130R. Flat out, of course. Taking the shortest run that you possibly can. The traction sounded good. DRS open. And that's a purple final sector, and that indeed pushes that lap time even higher to a 128.39 flat. That is one mighty lap from Øyvind Haugland. I'm not sure. I mean, if Ben Goldthorpe was close before, he ain't anymore. That was incredible from Øyvind. And keep in mind that some people are still finding purple sectors out there. Jesus, middle sector is improving as well. So, you know, who knows? It's not over yet. It isn't over yet. Jesus is finding time out there, which means if Ben can also find that time, get a purple through sector 3, then who knows? We may have a battle on still. Frederick Larsen improving through every single sector. You would imagine that this will improve his lap time, and he will put himself between Fabian and Gianluca, maybe even ahead of them if he nails the final sector. Jesus puts himself P3 with a 129. Frederick Larsen improving with a 128.59, and immediately showing that he now has the pace to fight with Øyvind Haugland. And what that means is that 2/10 gap I was talking about before between Øyvind, Frederick, and Ben, if they could find it, yeah, that's just happened. But exactly. So, you know, commentators make magical things happen. That's all I'm saying. If you're running a league and you want to make magical things happen in your races, hire a commentator. Guaranteed it will work every time. It'll either be due to the commentator's curse, or because the drivers now have more to fight for. Because they'll be seen on stream. Of course, I don't want to take all the credit. These drivers are incredible in themselves, but hey, sometimes it helps having that little bit of a presence on you. Makes you want to push even harder. It's Ben Goldthorpe. We are on board through turn 1. Let's see, can his sector 1 be quick? He is green through sector 1, so it's looking good for Ben. We need to see if he can improve through sector 2. You gotta nail these S's. If you get one part of the S's wrong, the entire flow gets messed up. But he seems to have done himself pretty good through that. But he's still down, actually, on his personal best through the S's. So I must have missed something through the Degners we go before the hairpin. And he goes purple. He found what Jesus found through the Degners, through the hairpin, trying to get on traction. The car steps out. That's going to be lap done and dusted, I think, for Ben Goldthorpe, because he's nowhere near going to improve after that exit. And indeed, already down on the Delta. Through Spoon Curve we go. Can he keep it nice and tidy on the exit of Spoon? Down to the run to 130R. Is he going to be able to put himself on pole, or at least challenge Frederick Larsen with 7 more minutes to go of this qualifying session? I believe Ben has just backed out. It doesn't sound like he's really gunning for it, so I think he's just getting himself set up, and he's going to go again for one final lap. And indeed he is. Not really taking the shortest run to the line. Not really an improvement either. Øyvind Haugland, not really improving. Improved through sector 1, but then not really much else after that. Alex Shanna also currently improving, the boss man. And Øyvind, that's not really the way you're supposed to take that corner. Too much on the curb, spins round. Back end hits the wall. Gianluca pushing way too hard out of the exit of the S's. And, yeah, once again, not really what you want to be doing. Ian Rude currently improving for the Scuderia Bicer Racing team. So let's see if the Rude boy himself can improve on his lap time. I mean, if he can find 0.2 of a second, there is P10 waiting for him. So it seems like he is improving through first and the third sector. Through the hairpin we go. Looks pretty clean on exit, so Ian Rude doing a good job so far towards Spoon. Have to nail this corner, otherwise the lap is pretty much ruined. Spoon, one of those corners that you want to try and commit as hard as you can to, but if you commit too hard, you end up slowing yourself down on exit quite a lot because you have to lift off to really let the car rotate, and you're not on the power early enough. However, he is still improving flat out through 130R in these cars. Absolutely no worries about it. Into the Casio triangle we go. You almost want to brake early so that you can get on the power earlier on exit. And indeed, that seems to be what he's done. Ian Rude, will he improve on his lap time? Will he put himself in P10? He does better than that and puts himself P9, 1/10 off what Jacob Bisa was able to do currently. I've seen Shearborn currently trying to improve on their lap time as well with a they are currently on a 1 minute 30.3, but they are looking to massively improve that lap time and push themselves even further ahead with a 129.7, so 0.6 improvement from Eystein, and that's going to put them P8 overall. 4 more minutes to go then before we get into our feature race, which, speaking of, I will let you guys know how long we have for our feature and our sprint lengths today. We have a 26 lap Grand Prix distance followed off by an 8 lap sprint, and we always know that the sprints are a little bit chaotic, a little bit manic. We do love a good sprint race here. So let's see, can Shanna improve on his lap time and put himself higher than P14? Not with an exit like that from Spoon, you're not going to. He's out in the background doing the exact same thing. And Goldthorpe does improve on his lap time, puts himself second place with a 128.579. Incredibly close to Frederick Larsson's lap time as well, so if Frederick can improve even in just one sector and stay pretty neutral through the rest, then Frederick Larsson has second place back again. Although I am wondering, actually, would you want P2 here? Because P3 can really get a good run into turn 1. Just follow the guy on the inside and second place is as good as gone. So I almost think Frederick Larsson's better off sitting in P3, holding off. Instead of trying to go for P2, just chill. But of course he is a pretend racing driver at the end of the day, so he is going to try and have the pretend racing driver mentality of, yeah, but I also want to be number 1. So Frederick Larsson then, one more lap. Take your opportunity. You see your opportunity. Are you going to capture it? Or are you going to let it slip? Are his knees weak? Or his arms heavy? I hope there isn't vomit on his race suit already. He ate mom's spaghetti. No homage to Eminem there. For the S's of Suzuka then, Frederick Larsson improving through Sector 1. Down through Sector 2, but I wonder if it's by a lot. Absolutely nailing the Degners. Really wanted to try and push for as much time as he can, and he is improving once again. So Frederick Larsson, he could, if he finds 2/10 here, he could beat Oyvind. But he needs to nail this next corner. He needs to nail Spoon. If he can get Spoon right, he's purple through Sector 4. Nail Spoon, Frederick, and it's all yours. Frederick Larsson looking to make it on the line. A pole position here at Suzuka. Down to 130R. He only has to navigate one corner, really. He's down through Sector 5, but that's not going to matter because that is just a straight, really. It means the exit from Spoon isn't necessarily the best. but through the Casio triangle, just nail it. Oh no, the back end comes out. He gets the throttle down too early, and the improvement he had, the potential pole position, it was all too much for Fredrik Larsen, and that is him, unfortunately, in P3 with the potential of an overall pole here at Suzuka. That was incredibly unlucky for himself. I mean, that is absolutely gutting. However, what this does mean then is your grid for the what they call Heat 1, but for our main race here, Øyvind Haugland will take pole position from Ben Goldthorpe in P2 for that intense sim racing team. Fredrik Larsen takes P3 from Jesus Altuve in P4. Fabian Blitz in P5 with Gianluca Iliano in P6. Eystein Schierpelone P7 with Rody Schilter in P8. And then we're moving back. We have Troy Banks P9, Jacob Bisa in P10, Ian Rude P11, Volker in P12, Frank Bisa P13, Alex Shanna P14, and Kenneth Paul rounding out our grid in P15. And you know what they say, when the lights come on, we have to look at the pole position man, Øyvind Haugland. Everyone on mediums except for Ian Rude. It's going to be a chaotic start, and here we go. We are green in Suzuka, and everyone is already crashing at the start between the Intend guys. I believe that is Fredrik Larsen as well, having an unfortunate incident. Gianluca Iliano there in the background, and I have no idea what happened, but one of the Intend Sim Racing guys has already lost their rear wing. That's Gianluca Iliano, and one of them, I believe, lost their front wing as well. That is unfortunate for the Intend guys, who are looking to even try to push for a win here. And yeah, I mean, already you're starting to look at one team who has it all, really, and unfortunately, even though they did have it all, they are just throwing it away off the start. Looks like it's clean for everyone else so far, though. Jacob Bisa, unfortunately, having a little bit of an incident through the Degners, means that he's now pushed a little bit further back. And Rody Schilter was indeed the person who hit Gianluca Iliano. So Rody Schilter, who was battling with Ben Goldthorpe for the win of this championship, Gianluca Iliano, who's not really posing any threat to Rowley. Unfortunately, both of them out of this Grand Prix, or at least so far. Eystein Schierpelone through 130R, looking to try and size up a move on Jesus Altuve. Gonna look through the Casio triangle, but not gonna make any moves just yet until Jesus makes a mistake and makes it rather easy, actually, for Eystein to just pop up the inside, and away he goes. Troy Banks now also looking to try and get past Jesus for that move. Jesus losing quite a few positions already. Troy Banks just fallen back in behind. Tried to maybe fake him out a little, but Jesus still managing to do pretty well, although a little bit of a weird contact there between Troy Banks and Jesus. I'm not sure if that was Jesus lifting on the exit or just a bad exit from him, but Troy Banks definitely hit there into the front of Jesus. Frank Bisa now looking to try and make his way past Troy Banks, and if he can, then we look at Volker and Fredrik looking to also try and make their way through as well. Jesus off there on the side of the road, jumping all the way back down the order. Frank Bisa currently holding up, and oh, what a move from Fredrik Larsen. Oh, sorry, not Fredrik Larsen, from Volker, trying to make the dive on Jacob, or rather Frank. Frank having the avoidance there. Nice job from him. Immediately, Fredrik Larsen makes the moves on those two, completely avoids the incident and just drives off, surviving so far. So Volker maybe being a little bit aggressive into the hairpin, but, you know, no contact was made, or at least it didn't look like it. It looked like they both managed to avoid the contact by just sort of going straight, unfortunately, into the gravel. But, you know, sometimes you have to avoid the incident by going off track. Frederick Larson now, you would imagine, is going to make this move look relatively easy here on Troy. Troy very much squeezing the two of them, making contact into turn one. Troy Banks, that almost gave me PTSD from an incident I had around here a while ago. Frederick Larson off in the background here. Alex Shanna trying to make his way through. Jacob Bisa also going up the inside of Alex to try and spice things up a little bit more, and it's all kicking off further back here for P6. Ian Rude just managing to drive away at this point on those soft compound tires and just staying out of the carnage that's behind him. And that seems to be the strategy for a lot of these guys at the moment, is just stay out of the carnage, and you're going to do pretty dang well. Alex Shanna serving a slowdown penalty, I would imagine, for cutting the corners through the Degners. We are obviously on lap 3 here of 26, so quite a few more laps to go, and already these drivers are treating it like it's a sprint race. I'm not sure they got the memo that the sprint race is after this one. You know, these cars still have to survive 26 laps. Oh no, carnage in the exit of Spoon. 2 cars out of the race. Jacob Bisa and Alex Shanna, those 2 cars are going no further. That was a huge collision between the 2 of them, and it all started from Jacob Bisa. You see it from Troy's POV. Jacob Bisa, unfortunately, coming out on the exit of Spoon. You listen to it, the revs rise, and just nowhere for him to go. Didn't hold the brakes, so he came back across the circuit, hit into Alex Shanna, who also had nowhere to go. And that is it. Race done and dusted for those guys. At the moment, this race proving to be a race of attrition so far. If you can keep your car clean, you're probably going to do pretty dang well. A couple of drivers into the pit lane for the hard compound tires. That would be Rolly Schilter, Troy Banks, Volker, and Frank Bisa. And I would imagine when they come out of the pit lane, Jacob Bisa, Alex Shanna also doing the same thing. Wouldn't surprise me, as Ian Rude has made a little bit of a mistake here off the circuit, just a little bit too wide. Locks up, goes straight. Thankfully, looks like no damage to that car, but he managed to take that one pretty clean. Comes back onto the circuit, is now behind his teammate, but even still, he's alive, and that seems to be the main thing. We'll throw up the gap to the leader for everyone so that they can see just how far people are now apart from Oyvind Haugland, who is currently on our screens leading the race. Ben Goldthorpe, unfortunately, not really be able to do much more than sort of just stick with him. You would hope that maybe Oyvind can... Oh, sorry, Ben can challenge, but they seem to be very evenly matched on pace at the moment. And, you know, if he can keep close, then Oyvind still has to drive faultlessly to win this race. Maybe that's what Ben's banking on. Like to be present on the next season. Well, Fred, we look forward to having you, my friend. We look forward to having you here at the IFL. Hopefully you've enjoyed the action so far this season. You know, from both the F3 categories and the F1. Obviously, the F3 is being hosted on Sundays. The F1 being hosted on the Saturdays. Hopefully both series continue on in the future. It would be awesome to see more people getting involved and creating more action for us here. And once again, Ben Goldthorpe not really able to really find anything at the moment. Frank Bisa currently hunting down his sister teammate, you would say, in Ian Rude. Ian switching from the softs to the mediums, but maybe a little bit too early, really, to make the mediums go all the way. I think Frank has the right idea, sitting on the hards, trying to make them go all the way. Due to an earlier mistake, you don't have to make a pit stop anymore, so as long as you keep the tyres fresh enough, you should be able to make it to the end, and just hope that that's enough to put you back into a couple of contention, into a couple of spots even. However, with the gaps as they are, you'll maybe looking at top 10 finish. I think is definitely achievable for the people who have had those unfortunate incidents. Rolly Schilter, I mean, potentially top 5, but it's probably going to require mistakes from Kenneth, Frederick, Eystein, maybe even Fabian Blitz making a little bit of an error, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. 6 laps so far of this race. Not necessarily been and gone, but we're getting there. We will see Øyvind Haugland soon trying to get into the background. But of course, Øyvind does still need to pit, so... I do wonder whether or not Ben is going to be able to actually get within DRS range. He's matching... Oh, well, matching or beating Øyvind in laps, or rather in lap times every now and then, but it's not really consistent enough, I don't think, at the moment. And every time he does, he always drops back a little bit further. And then Fabian Blitz and Eystein behind just aren't quite close enough to Øyvind and Ben's lap times to really challenge for P1 overall. They're still sitting just a few seconds back each lap. Frederick Larsen really the only one who seems to have the similar sort of lap times to what Øyvind and Ben are doing in that 33 range, maybe even pushing down into the 32s like Øyvind and Ben. I wonder if Frank is actually communicating with Ian right now to just say, hey man, if you think you've got the pace, just go ahead of me. I'm not looking to just crash out of this race for no reason. Side by side through 130R potentially. Ian Rude looking to make a move, but Frank having absolutely none of it, so that probably answers my question, and the fact that they aren't talking to each other, even though they are part of sister teams. There's still no communication between the two of them, but with DRS, maybe even attack ERS, that is Ian Rude right past Frank, and he's going to wander off probably a couple seconds up the road once those medium tyres start getting working for him. And he can push them through the S's and have way more grip than Frank does. Obviously, Frank needs to keep an eye that his tyres are going to go off towards the end of the race if he plans on keeping this set all the way. So we'll have to wait and see how this race develops. Are the hard tyre runners now going to go all the way to the end of this race? And, you know, with some of them coming out on lap 4, it's going to be tough, you know? You've got to do 22 laps on hard tyres. I mean, maybe you can do it, but I wouldn't imagine the tyres are going to look that great. They're not going to feel that great at the end either. So if you'll have to battle with someone who isn't doing the same strategy as you, has fresher tyres than you, who knows where you end up? I mean, you know, if you look at Rolly Schilter, for example, and we will go on board with him just to give... you know, those other guys some exposure while they are out in the middle of nowhere. You know, Rolly Schilter needs to sort of just keep where he is, because the guys ahead of him, everyone ahead of him hasn't pit yet, but everyone behind him has. So he's sort of, you would say, net first if it wasn't for Øyvind and Ben being out so far ahead. You know, if it wasn't for them being almost 50 seconds out in front, you would say Rolly can probably take the win here by just going to the end of the race because of pit stop strategy. But Rolly Schilter, of course, knows that realistically, I mean, P4 is within reach. Only just, but it is within reach. P5, P6, probably looking more probable. I mean... it's a 40-second gap to P4 by itself from where he is right now. 30 seconds to Frederick Larsen. And you're probably looking at about a 20-second time loss just in the pit lane alone. So Kenneth Poole is definitely a man who Rolly's going to have to fight with later on in the race. But we'll wait and see whether or not the consistency of some of the other drivers ahead mean that Rolly has to drive faultlessly from here as well. I mean, keep in mind, Rolly Schilter early on in the race, I mean, he collided with his teammate, which is not something you really want to happen. Took out both his front wing and his teammate's rear wing. And Ian Rude already catching up to the back of Vulcan now that the tires, his medium tires, are warmed up. So one set softer tires, how much does that mean for grip? With DRS wide open, you would imagine Ian Rude goes to the inside, and this is all she wrote on the inside of turn 1, and indeed Ian Rude flies past Volker and up into P9. And then he's going to try and use those medium tires and the clean air in front of him to pull away. That is move done and dusted. I don't think Volk is coming back from that one just yet. However, developments being made further back. Well, I say further back. Further up ahead in terms of position, but further back on track. There's Eystein Schipperlein potentially looking into turn 1 to go up the inside of Fabian Blitz. But just having to hold back for the moment. Doesn't want to make anything too risky just yet. Eystein holding on for now. Both of these drivers on medium tyres. Both of them on medium tyres, but dirty air in the way of Eystein means that not as easy to follow around here. Has to pick their moment closely. As Ben Goldthorpe is starting to push within DRS range of Øyvind Haugland, so keep one eye on this battle and another eye on that timing between Øyvind and Ben, because Ben looks to be starting to increase the pace just a little bit, just ever so slightly. He's proving to be that little bit more consistent than Øyvind is at the moment. Maybe he can put the pressure on the Race Labs team and take a win here at Suzuka, which will put him ahead of Øyvind's teammate, Riley Jacobs. And by quite a bit as well. Ben really having just a good time of it right now. He knows that if Riley doesn't really turn up for the next couple of races, he's got the championship in the bag, so just really needs to sort of finish. Øyvind is currently fighting between himself and Gianluca Iliano for P4 in the championship, I believe it is. So again, another one to watch as Eystein Schipperlein finally makes the move on Fabian Blitz to put himself in P4, and that is move done and dusted with the dirty air through the S's. I'd imagine Fabian is just going to drop a bit further back lap after lap, and that will be move done and dusted. Eystein can look ahead to these two cars right here on track. Øyvind Haugland and Ben Goldthorpe. Finally has Ben caught up. Let's see if Ben can nail the overtake. I mean, you're going to think that both these drivers want to go until at least lap 25. Lap 15 before they pit for soft tires. But can the mediums make it there? Can they go 15, possibly 16 laps before they pit? I mean, you would imagine they would. If hard tyre runners are thinking they can do 24 laps on a set of hards, and they think they can do that comfortably, then I wouldn't be surprised to see these other drivers get close, at least the medium runners. Ben Goldthorpe, however, that last lap, Riley Jacobs now realizing, sorry, Øyvind Haugland, not Riley Jacobs. I'm so used to seeing Riley out in front in the Racing Lab car that Ben Goldthorpe being behind, I was like, oh yeah, no, it's just between Riley and Ben again. It's all good. But no, Øyvind Haugland being out in front sees Ben now actually getting close on the relative, and I would imagine that that's going to push Øyvind to try that a little bit harder. Just try and maintain that gap. Make sure that Ben can't really follow the same lines he is. That front left tyre through the braking zone of the hairpin always will lock up. I don't care how good of a driver you are. Front left tyre has a habit of always locking. Through Spoon Curve we go. and then it's going to be slipstream all the way. Maybe even a little bit of attack ERS here from Ben Goldthorpe to try and keep up the gap, keep close so that he can make a move into turn 1 with ERS. You see the two cars bouncing around, porpoising, as they like to say, maybe trying to make a move into the Casio triangle. He looks to the inside, but backs off just to the last second. Ben Goldthorpe knows that he's now close enough. Oyvind's now going to have to look in the mirrors, as much as he doesn't really want to. DRS wide open for Ben Goldthorpe then, going into turn 1. Is he going to be able to make the move? No, he doesn't. He just sits back once again. So great defense from Oyvind. Maybe using a bit of ERS battery to try and defend from a very hard charging Ben. And if Ben can't really get this position before the pit stops, then maybe he can just hit the box better and move on. But of course, Ben Goldthorpe at the moment has to just keep close. That's all he needs to do at the moment. Ben doesn't really need to risk anything yet. We're halfway through. It's lap 13 of 26, so you're halfway through. You know that you've got the pace to keep up with Oyvind, and with DRS you probably have the pace to pass him as well. So it's just about sizing up the right opportunity, making sure you can keep those tyres fresh, and not letting him out of DRS range. Because the moment you start getting out of DRS range, that's when Oyvind starts running away again. And you don't really want to have to fight to get back in, if you can help it. You want to try and use that slipstream, that DRS, and maybe it's a battery issue in the way of Ben Goldthorpe as why the pace has just suddenly dropped off, and Oyvind has gained almost 0.3 of a second on that last lap alone compared to where they were on the previous lap. DRS still open though, so Ben Goldthorpe going to be able to keep nice and close. And yeah, I mean, those lap times, 133.5 compared to the 132s that Ben was doing earlier. I mean, tyres do play a role in that. We are on lap 14, so near where I think people are going to start coming into the pits, and indeed Fabian does. But yeah, Ben Goldthorpe, I mean, if you've used all your battery early, then potentially if Oyvind hasn't been doing anything with it and just been sitting in balance, then he has enough battery to just keep up this same pace. Like, he doesn't need to really push much harder than this. And he can just finish in a good spot. And then if he needs to defend, he has the battery available to him, whereas Ben might not have the battery to attack, only has to rely on DRS. And then you start getting into that whole battle of which is better. Personally, if I was Ben, I'd want both. So maybe go into build for a few laps if you don't have the charge available to you, and then use it all when you know that you can make the move. But maybe this is all just a bit too much and these guys just are slugging it out, not really worrying about ERS modes or engine management or anything like that, and they're just going, you know what, we're going to drive as fast as possible. Just every now and again we're going to press the DRS button. And of course only one DRS straight around here. I wonder if they'd ever had talks about adding DRS before 130R, and then it got cancelled due to the fact that 130R is possibly a little bit too dangerous to have DRS through. Make the cars incredibly light moving through that. So wouldn't be surprised to see them not adding that at some point. Fabian Blitz moving on to the hard tyres, by the way. So pits from mediums to hards. So his tyres are going to make it all the way to the end, absolutely. It's just whether or not he's going to have the pace compared to the guys moving on to softs. Frederick Larson and Eystein Schiapolone, most notable two for that. Now, I'm not sure if Ben is really just starting to struggle with dirty air, but he's keeping it close enough for now. I wouldn't be surprised to see these two come into the pit lane this lap by. If everybody else on the grid except Kenneth Paul has pit, then these two will probably do the same. Although, with the lockup, maybe Oivin's going to be forced to. Indeed, he comes into the pit lane, so does Ben Goldthorpe. Trying to avoid contact. They both make contact in the pit lane! Goldthorpe and Oivind Haugland making contact in the pit lane. I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm trying to see if there's any damage on that car. Well, I saw smoke coming out from one of them. Both these drivers then, very aggressive. They know where they're at. They know what they want. I want to see if I can get an idea as to what happened here in the pit lane. So coming into the pit lane then. Oh! They do touch in the pit lane. Ben Goldthorpe pretty much taking out Oivind Haugland in the pits. But does back off to give back that position. So nice respect between the two. But yeah, that's not really what you want. If you're Ben Goldthorpe, you're running a great race and then you proceed to run into the back of Oivind going into the pit lane. It's not the greatest display from himself, but now you've got 10 laps. Can you catch up 2.3 seconds and pass Oivind Haugland? Of course, for Oivind, all really he's fighting for is just to be able to put himself more points ahead of Gianluca Iliano in the championship standings. I mean, he is close to Roly Schulter, and with Roly Schulter's unfortunate mistake here, it does mean that he will start clawing back more points. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Icein Schiapolone currently with the fastest lap of the race with a 1:31.083. Of course, Oivind Haugland and Ben haven't had a quick lap yet on soft tyres, so I would imagine that they'll start pushing into the 1:30s, maybe even the 1:29s. I mean, you know Ben is absolutely going to be pushing the limit of this Mercedes W13. And he needs to. He's got 9 more laps to go. And if he can't pass Oivind in those 9 laps, then, well, that is going to be all she wrote. We're going to have a P123 of race laps once again. In 10 sim racing P2, and then an unlikely name, but one I'm very excited to see up the top is Icein Schiapolone. So, good job for Icein picking up a P3. I want to say that's the highest finish that they would have had so far this season for Lumos. You know, it's right place at the right time. If everyone else takes out your competition, then you can do pretty well. 1:30.6 for Oivind Haugland, 1:30.8 for Ben Goldthorpe. So Ben not really quick enough to make any moves just yet. Kenneth Paul looking to try and maybe make a move here on Troy Banks further down the field. This is for P7 overall through 130R. Here we go. He's going to have increased grip, obviously, from those soft tyres compared to the hard tyres, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a move made into turn 1. A little bit of a lock up there as well from Kenneth, as he starts trying to push that Mercedes for everything it's worth, trying to catch up to Troy Banks. Not quite close enough just yet. Oivind Haugland, by the way, setting purple sectors. He is on a mission to just run away with this one and end the race pretty much where he started. Kenneth Paul trying to look to maybe gain a couple of positions here. He started near the back and he's gained 7 positions so far. I'm going to try and maybe make it 8. And, you know, it's good to see. Kenneth is having some great races here. And, unfortunately, Troy Banks... Oh, that's a bit of an opportunistic move there between the two of them. Kenneth Paul sticks his nose up the inside of Troy Banks, and unfortunately Troy didn't really have anywhere to go. I had to sort of turn out of it, but didn't. As Troy Banks turned around and now battling with Ian Rude, and I'm pretty sure Ian just went off track trying to pass, and he is back in the pit lane because of it. So let's see what happened here then. Troy just sort of comes across on him. That is unfortunate for Ian Rude. Unfortunate for a lot of these drivers. Their races have ended pretty early. I mean, at the moment we're seeing 5 DNFs so far. Potentially a 6th now in Troy Banks. It is rather unlucky. These F1 cars proving once again that they are pretty difficult to drive, pretty difficult to keep on the circuit for 26 consecutive laps. Especially with some people making mistakes. Makes it even harder. The reaction time you need to avoid incidents in these cars. Pretty difficult. Frederick Larson, though, looking to maybe try and spice things up in the last couple of laps. Try and pick up a P5 for himself. Any points are good points for himself. You know, he's finishing ahead of everyone he needs to finish ahead of. At least people ahead of him in the championship. Maybe not Eystein, but Hannes isn't here, so picking up a good chunk of points against Hannes. Picking up a good chunk of points against Frank. Picking up a good chunk of points against Troy. So one more position gain for Frederick Larson, and that will be very nice indeed. Currently 72 points is Frederick Larson on, compared to the 85 of Frank Bisa. And if I take a look at the championship point system, if I can find it. So Frederick Larson is battling for an extra 2 points. He'll pick up 16 if he can get past Rolly Schilter, instead of 14 if he sticks. If he sticks where he is. This doesn't include fastest lap point or safest driver point, but I don't think. Potentially, I'm not sure if Frederick Larson is within range of safest driver today. I think that is that's probably going in the way of some of the other drivers here, like maybe Fabian or Eystein, who have just sort of kept their nose clean, maybe Oyvind or Ben. But Frederick Larson with DRS then, maybe trying to make the move on Rolly Schilter, does indeed get past through turn 1, nice and easy. And now maybe trying to run away. Probably too far away now to catch Fabian, but that points deficit between himself and Troy Banks picking up only 6 points. That's 10 points going in the way of Frederick. I believe Troy is the next highest up in the championship after... Oh, no, sorry, Frank is at the moment. So it was 13-point difference between the two of those. And points between the two of them now is 6. So if you do the maths at home, you'll find that actually this battle between Rolly Shilter and Frederick Larson is going to heat up instead. Currently, Rolly Shilter trying to maybe look around the inside, but seems to have more straight line speed than Frederick Larson. However, really struggling in the corners compared to the soft tyres. You see the porpoising so much harder on Rolly than it is on Frederick. Braking now into the Casio triangle, giving room, so much room side by side. Early on the throttle, both drivers squirming on exit. Who's got DRS? It's Frederick Larson, so you'd imagine Frederick is now finally going to be able to run away. Both drivers darting across the circuit, and this battle heating up then in the last few laps of this Grand Prix. Rolly Shilter not really able to hold that line as aggressively as Frederick Larson could in those soft tyres. But if those soft tyres die off near the end of the race, those hards still looking pretty good for Rolly Shilter. Who knows what might happen. As I was trying to say, while all of that was kicking off, we have Frederick Larson and Frederick Larson and Frank are going to now be separated by, instead of the 13 points they were before, it's now going to be down to 7 points, which means in the sprint, potentially if Frank doesn't have the best sprint, or takes home no points in the sprint, Frederick can finish at least 6th place, then they'll be tied on points moving into the next round of the championship. So it's looking like it's getting pretty close for P9 of the championship, maybe even P8, with Troy Banks not necessarily taking home a lot of points here today. But this battle now, I'm pretty sure, is all but said and done, unless Frederick Larson makes a big mistake. P5 definitely for himself. You know, there hasn't really been much else to talk about aside from the smaller battles here. Further down the grid, it seems like the front three, once they've gotten to their positions, they've sort of just held them. Icy and Schiapolo managed to fight their way through, but you know, once they've gotten there, they've sort of been unchallenged since. Hopefully that means the sprint is going to be a little bit more interesting, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously an 8-lap sprint race, so it's going to be nice and spicy. But of course, if all of you have enjoyed the action today, then feel free to let us know what you thought of the season so far. What's been your favourite moments so far as well? As, oh dear, Rolly Shilter had a massive off there in the background, locking up, I believe, and going straight across in the Casio triangle. And thankfully, Kenneth Paul's a little bit too far behind to capitalise on any mistakes, but even still, that's a pretty big one. But last few laps of our main race here before we move on to the sprint, where I will need to make sure that I've got a drink ready, because that sprint is always chaos. And hopefully we can stop having people crash on the start-finish line. But of course I am hopeful. Last time out at Zandvoort, I think it was, we had a horrible collision on the start of the sprint. I think Monza was okay. Though, I might be misremembering. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But with 2 more tours of the island to go, Øyvind Haugland looking to take this one in a pretty convincing fashion. Once Ben got out of DRS range, that was sort of it. They collided in the pit lane, and ever since the second phase of this race, Øyvind Haugland has just gunned away, not really able to fight. Fredrik Larsen currently pitting for another set of soft tyres, maybe, to try and go for fastest lap point. Not really sure if it was worth it. Considering now you're sitting behind potentially Kenneth as well. You've lost 2 positions trying to go for fastest lap point. Unless potentially there was another issue with Fredrik and that's why he came into the pits, but you're losing 2 points to potentially gain 1. I don't really understand the call myself personally. And that's only if you can get past Kenneth Paul as well. And Kenneth isn't going to make it easy for you. I think maybe Fredrik was just seeing the stream and wanting to make a bit more action for the final lap here around Suzuka. There always seems to be action at Suzuka. I do love it as a racetrack. Arguably my favourite race circuit in the world. We'll have to wait and see whether or not it can hold up the hype. As now with DRS, Fredrik Larsen is going to blast past Kenneth Paul. Absolutely no issues. And we move on to then the final lap of this race. Øyvind Haugland looking to come through and win here in Japan. Øyvind Haugland takes the win from Ben Goldthorpe in P2, with Eystein Schierplein picking up a very impressive P3. Fabian Blitz coming through 130R. Into the final corner we go, the Casio Triangle. Gotta nail this one so that you can bring it home in P4. Good result from Fabian. Rolly Schulter going now through 130R, about to do the same thing. Fabian Blitz tried to go for fastest lap at the end of the race, but 132.083, not quite fast enough. Currently our fastest race lap is a 130.62. Fredrik Larsen looking to try and do that, as Rolly Schulter does cross the line in P5. Fredrik Larsen needs to just nail the exit of this corner. And pick up the fastest lap of the race. Does go to Fredrik Larsen, 129.451. Bit of an interesting strategy, though, considering the fact that you lost 1 point by going for it. But, hey, that 1 point may end up mattering. It might not. He took the fastest lap away from Øyvind, at least, so there is that. But that has been our feature race here. Next up, we do have the warm-up for 5 minutes before we get into our sprint race here of 8 laps distance. And in the meantime, just while they're doing their warm-up, we should hear a word from our sponsors, Extreme Scoring.
extreme scoring to do the work for you.
Nice and quick, nice and easy. Of course, we give a massive shout out to all of our sponsors here for helping us do the wonderful work that we do. Extreme Scoring, Butt Kicker, of course, for allowing us to have some amazing prizes. Capral Sim Racing, same thing, as well as some amazing sim racing gear. And then Family Money as well, one of our community members' companies, helping you keep in track of your family's expenses. And with 2 minutes to go, let's get some scenic shots around this lovely, lovely racetrack. I do love the look of Suzuka. I think it is absolutely magnificent. Unfortunately, iRacing doesn't show it in the greatest of lights because of the fact that most of the detail is on the track. But they have the big Ferris wheel, which is always an exciting time. And another thing they do, not necessarily for the F1 of course, but one thing they do have at some of their events is... well, I'm not sure if Suzuka has it, but I know Fuji does, is the Circuit Safari. I think that's one of Fuji's things. They do it for the World Endurance Championship, I believe. And that's always exciting. You can actually, while the race is on, you can actually take a bus around the circuit. So you can see the cars flying past you right up close and personal. As I say, actually a very exciting thing. Something that I wish I could do at some point. There's a lovely circuit safari. I think that would be very cool. Get to see all the wild animals up close, as they say. But with 1.5 minutes of warm-up left to go, we get ready for the sprint race, which is going to be 8-lap distance. So just over 12 minutes race length. And it's where we find out who has it. Who can actually make it all the way to the end without any sort of incidents? Because this is always the one, the sprint is always the one that I find ends up being the most chaotic, the most exciting. There's always action somewhere, and it's usually right at the beginning. And then there's a huge pack that battles for the middle. And then right at the end of the race, something happens around where the leaders are. So let's see if that holds true today. 40 seconds left of warm-up before we head off into our feature... well, I say our feature, our sprint race. Our weather at the moment on circuit, just in case anybody was curious. 21°C ambient temperature with a 37 degrees track temperature. 72% humidity, but of course we do not have rain yet in iRacing, so that's not necessarily the biggest problem. 16 km/h winds, which has just changed to 15, and now 14. Because, of course, it would. So, pretty hot track for these cars. Maybe forces people to start on mediums. But no. All these drivers want an 8 laps, soft tyre, absolute run to the end. And we will load up the grid here for our last race for you this evening. Volker there on pole position, followed off by Ian Rude, Troy Banks, Jacob Bieser, Frank Bieser, Kenneth Paul, Frederick Larson, Rolly Schilter, and then further back we have Fabian Blitz, Eystein Schierpelone, Ben Goldthorpe, Oyvind Haugland, Alex Shanna, Jesus Altuve, and Gianluca Iliano to round out the back end of this grid. Of course, watch out to see whether or not we can potentially get a upset on the win of this sprint race. Look to see your favorite driver battling from potentially further back than where they are normally. It is going to be a good one, of course. We are looking at this man here, Volker Wiebusch, to get us underway. We are green flag here, and everybody looks to have had a pretty decent start so far. They're going 4 wide down the start-finish straight, and already people are making contact. Already people are heading off to the outside wall. That's Ian Rude flipped up and over. Frank Beast is involved as well. And oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Already the start is absolutely chaotic when we hit turn 1. Jacob Beast is managing to run away from Volker, from Troy, from Rody Schilter, from Frederick Larsen, going into the Degners for the first time. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Unfortunately, the please turn over sign was on the wrong side of the car, I think, for Ian Rude there. That was very chaotic indeed. I told you these starts are a little bit chaotic. And indeed, it proved to be the exact same. Once again, someone flipping down the start-finish straight. I mean, somebody needs to go out there and make a compilation of flipped cars on the start of these sprint races, because there has been far too many to count. We're now going to 130R for the first time. Rody Schilter trying to go around the outside of Troy Banks, but can't find anywhere to go just yet. Maybe going to try and go up the inside of the Casio Triangle. Holds off for now. Everybody just filing in single file for the moment. That's Rody Schilter off on the background, and that is going to be a huge amount of positions lost. Oyvind Haugland managing to fight his way through that and actually catch up to the back of Eystein Schierpelone currently. So remember, this was your top 3 in the last race. Oyvind Haugland has already got past Ben Goldthorpe, who has now got past Eystein as well. Ben is still sat behind. Gianluca Iliano sitting in P9, so trying to recover from the losses that he had earlier on in the first race, where his teammate Rody Schilter hit him. And I'm sure there'll be words discussed between those two afterwards. But this is your battle then for P3 currently. Well, for P2 currently, actually, I should say. Troy Banks, Volker Wiebusch, and Frederick Larsen looking to try and make his way involved at some point. With Jacob Bisa actually managing to run away pretty dang quickly. So if Jacob could pull a big enough gap, then maybe Oyvind has his work cut out for him to try and hit P1 overall in the second race of 2 here around the Japanese circuit today. Troy Banks maybe trying to make a move here on Volker. Keep an eye on it. Troy Banks through 130R is going to have the slipstream. Is he going to commit through 130R? A little bit of a lift off into the Casio Triangle. Is he going to outbrake Volker? They do. Do they touch? No, they don't. And all that is very respectful driving between the two of them, but it's held them both up. Frederick Larsen's now back in the mix, and DRS is going to be available this next lap by. So this is where things start to get a little bit interesting for Volker. Oyvind Haugland up the inside of Fabian Blitz now. Ben Goldthorpe trying to do the same. Eystein has been passed by Ben Goldthorpe, and who's that off in the background? I believe that was Gianluca Iliano having a little bit of a mistake there, as Rody Schilter already trying to make his way back through. So Oyvind Haugland currently up 7 positions, just carving his way through the field. Doing an amazing job so far. Ben Goldthorpe just trying to follow him through at the moment. And of course now they are on the back of this battle for P3 overall between Frederick Larsen and Troy Banks. Frederick goes up the inside. Troy Banks has to take avoiding action. And that actually forces Oyvind to follow Troy and actually lose out to Fabian Blitz here. Troy Banks all the way off to the side of the circuit. Side by side they go into Spoon Corner. And you'll see if anyone tries to make a move up the inside. Oyvind tries to make the move up the inside of Fabian Blitz, and you'll imagine with the extra grip you get for being on the inside, Oyvind's going to make this move done. But further behind, Eystein Schierpalone's also going to try and make the move, and they're going to be going too wide down here, down the straight into 130R. Oyvind makes the move past, and with the better braking, he's going to be further ahead. Eystein even is going to try and go up the inside of Fabian Blitz, but nothing yet. And of course, what that means is Ben Goldthorpe has actually managed to benefit massively off that mistake from Frederick going up the inside of Troy. Oyvind Haugland trying to go around the long way around the outside of turn 1. Troy fighting it very aggressively, trying to defend for every position he has at the moment. We jump back on board with this battle between Ben Goldthorpe and Frederick Larsen. Can Ben hold on? Can Ben actually get further ahead? Because if he can, that's going to be huge for the championship. Oyvind Haugland really does need to get past Troy Banks as soon as possible. He needs to make the move as soon as possible, because if he can, then that's going to mean he can use his pace, really start to catch up. And big crash further behind. That is Eystein Schierpalone colliding with Fabian Blitz. And Gianluca Iliano and Rolly Schilter both benefiting from that one. Oyvind Haugland around the outside of Spoon Curve on Troy Banks, and now Oyvind needs to put his foot down and go, because he needs to catch up to the back of Ben if he wants this P2, if he wants to be on the podium in the feature, or rather the sprint race. He needs to go right now. Frederick Larsen and Frederick Larsen and Volker even battling side by side. Volker makes the mistake. Ben Goldthorpe pushes through, and immediately that pushes Volker way down the order after a spin up the Casio triangle. So Frederick Larsen, Ben Goldthorpe now both together, P2, P3. Oyvind looking to try and make it a three-way fight for second place. And they are going to start to try and catch up to the back of Jacob Bisa as well. Jacob doing an amazing job so far at just minimizing any sort of carnage that he's involved with and just trying to build a gap if he can. That gap slowly being demolished, though, as both Ben Goldthorpe now and Frederick Larsen battle side by side. It's going to allow Jacob Bisa actually to push out further ahead. And this is what Jacob wants to see. He wants to see these guys battling really hard behind, because if he can, then he can just drive home, keep it safe, drive home for the win. You know, it's lap 5 now of 8, so you've got 4 more laps to go, really. Well, 3 more tours of the island. And you know, if Ben can't make his way through, and if they keep battling, they're going to slow each other down. That's going to put Oyvind into contention. Oyvind's then going to battle, because he's not going to want to hang around. And all of a sudden, Jacob Bisa looks on for a win here. Ben Goldthorpe finally getting past Frederick Larsen with Slipstream through 130R. I wonder if Frederick did that on purpose so that Frederick can get DRS down this main straight. But Frederick Larsen having a bit of a problem navigating the Casio triangle, and Oyvind Haugland all of a sudden is right on the back of him. The battery deficit potentially for Frederick Larsen, because he isn't going anywhere fast. Oyvind Haugland up the inside makes it look easy. And now Oyvind trying to battle onto the back end of Ben Goldthorpe. Frederick Larsen's lost 2 positions here. Still gained 3 off the start, so pretty good for himself. But really, he wants to keep a hold of these guys if he can. And of course, Oyvind is trying to just keep on getting those podiums. Ben Goldthorpe, of course, really wants to win this one. Oyvind obviously wanting, if his teammate, if Riley is coming back for any of the last 3 rounds, Oyvind wants to give as little points to Ben as possible. So Oyvind trying to maybe play the team game here and get past Ben. We are on lap 6 of 8, moving into lap 7 soon. There is lapped traffic here for Jacob Bisa. And I want to say this is actually his own teammate, Frank. I wonder if Frank is actually going to give Jacob DRS down the main straight. How very cheeky indeed. A little bit of perfect timing from the Bisa team here. Jacob's going to get DRS down there straight to defend from Ben. And then if Frank pulls off to the inside here, brakes, and then comes back online, holds up Ben potentially, but no. Does the right thing, doesn't hold up Ben. Potentially might hold up Oyvind though. If anything, I think Jacob was the one who got a bit more held up in that situation than the other one. But with only 2 more laps to go, Ben needs to make the move soon. He's got the rest of this lap plus 1 more to do it. And going into the hairpin, is Ben going to try and risk a move? He does not just yet. He's just going to focus on the exit. That's what he needs to do. Focus on the exit, because of course the slipstream around here, we've already seen, is absolutely massive. So if you can hold on, all it's going to require is a little bit of a mistake from another driver, and all hell breaks loose once again. Ben Goldthorpe looking to try and make it a win here, but Jacob Bisa looking to try and get another sprint win. I say another, I'm not sure actually if he has won a sprint this season. If not, trying to make it his first anyway. Of course, there's always one person who wants to be the party pooper, and that in this case is Ben Goldthorpe. As we move on to the final lap, Jacob Bisa needs to defend for everything he has here. He needs to squeeze, he needs to... And squeeze he did, they almost made contact it looked like, but no, I think that was just a little bit of a ghost touch, as Jacob Bisa and Ben Goldthorpe have gotten past one another. Ben Goldthorpe now taking the lead of this race, and that pushes Jacob back into the clutches of Oyvind Haugland. That looked probably more dramatic than it actually was. But Jacob's now struggling quite a bit to try and defend. He's dropped off massively from Ben Goldthorpe after Ben just made that move stick. All Jacob needs to do is just hold on for a few more corners, and he will pick up a P2 here for the Bisa Racing team. Frederick Larsen has made a mistake further down. I don't know where it was, but Frederick Larsen has dropped off like a brick here. Did not have the pace at all, really, to keep up. A little bit unfortunate there from Jacob, as this could have been his first win in a sprint race, but Oyvind Haugland demotes him on the final lap, the final corner to P3, but even still, I would imagine Jacob Bisa, take a bow, my friend. That was an impressive drive nonetheless. Oyvind Haugland, Ben Goldthorpe, I mean, they are the stars of the show for today, obviously. Picking up a P1 and P2, respectively, for both those drivers in both the sprint and the feature. So incredible job fighting all the way back from P12 and P11, pick up P1 and P2. Eystein Schiapolone taking the last spot in the podium in our main race. What a lovely finish that was. No contact made between the two, just hard, fair racing. And a good result for Jacob Bisa. He picks up a podium there in the sprint. Now we'll see if anybody is willing to do any interviews. As we will pull up the results here of Heat 1. So this is our main race. Oyvind Haugland, Ben Goldthorpe and Eystein Schiapolone picking up P1, 2 and 3 respectively, with Fabian Blitz picking up P4, Rody Schilter P5, Frederick Larsen P6, Kenneth Paul P7, Frank Bisa P8, Jacob Bisa P9, Troy Banks P10. Further down the field, Ian Rude P11, Volker in P12, Alex Shanna P13, Jesus P14, and Gianluca Iliano there in P15. Then we move over to our feature, and we have Ben Goldthorpe P1, Oyvind Haugland P2, Jacob Bisa P3, Frederick Larsen P4, Gianluca Iliano P5, Troy Banks P6, Eystein P7, Fabian Blitz P8. Then we have Rolly Schulter P9, Frank Bisa P10, and then Alex Shanna P11, Volker P12, Ian Rude P13, Kenneth Paul P14, and Jesus rounds out our sprint race. But let's hear from our winner of the sprint, but second place in our main, Ben Goldthorpe. If I can find where the booth is. Ben, mate, congratulations for the sprint. Great result for yourself. I mean, winning the sprint has to feel pretty good, but, you know, second place as well in the feature. I mean, both races, you gotta say, today went pretty well for you.
Yes, I'm just catching my breath. That sprint was intense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
the last lap.
Yeah, it looked tough.
Yeah, feature was good. I had I don't even know what to call it, brain fade into the pits when I hit Oyvind. Just, oh my god. I'm so sorry to him. Luckily, we both continued, and we had built enough of a gap behind to still finish 1 and 2, but it was just, really silly from me.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask potentially whether or not there was any sort of issue there with yourself in the pit lane. I mean, it looked like it was not necessarily like intentional, but it was definitely a mistake. But as you say, a little bit of brain fade. You know, you were battling Oyvind all the way up until that pit lane, so I imagine trying not to lose as much time as possible was the goal.
Yeah, when you've got another car in front of you so close, and you don't really remember where the pit lane line is, it's sketchy. And he broke a bit earlier than I was expecting, but it's still my mistake.
Yeah. Well, you know, next time out, gonna be maybe more pit lane entry practice, if you can remember where the line is. But hey, I mean, even with the incident in the main race, you know, you still picked up a P2, and it looked like between yourself and Oyvind, it was always going to be one of you who was taking home the win, and the other one was going to take P2. It looked like in the main race, both of you were pretty comfortable with your gap once you got out of the sort of the first couple of laps. And then sort of in the sprint, you guys fought real hard to try and get through. There was a lot of carnage to avoid. At one point, I almost thought going through the hairpin, I think it was on like lap 5, Troy made a little bit of a mistake, or it could have been Frederick, pushed Troy out wide, and Oyvind had to take avoiding action. You managed to slip through fine.
I had
my
Moses moment. The seas just simply parted way for me, and I went through, and I had dead like a 2-second gap, and I was just wow, that's lucky.
Yeah. And of course, what it meant is that you were able to really just get your head down and try and focus on chasing Jacob. And, you know, Jacob himself, you know, all credit to him. It's nice to see him up there as well. But, you know, were you sort of, once you managed to get through and know that Jacob was the last car you needed to pass, did you sort of have the idea of like, well, I know how much I'm gaining, I'm gonna catch him? Or were you a bit worried that actually you weren't gonna win this run?
I think it was lap 6 or 7. The gap was 3 seconds, and then coming on to lap 7, it was 1.5. So at that point, I knew I could get it.
But even still, he made you work for it. It wasn't the easiest pass, but
no, it was close.
But still, you did end up making that move stick, and then on the last lap, Oyvind Haugland right up in the Casio triangle final corner manages to get past Jacob to pick up P2. So a little bit of unlucky there for Jacob, but again, mate, you know, congratulations to yourself picking up a P1 and a P2, both in our sprint and our main race respectively. And, you know, I guess more of the same for next time out. Road America, I believe, is the next circuit, so it'll be interesting. I think that one. Are you familiar with Road America as a circuit?
No.
Alright, so there's going to be a lot of learning to do then.
I'm going to assume it's in America.
Yes, it is. It is indeed in America. It's mainly used for endurance racing and IndyCar, so, you know, it does have some credibility to it. It's quite narrow, though, so I'm sure that's going to be interesting. We'll have to see how the sprint race starts go on that one.
I thought this week was, I mean, not like, no one had an incident, but at the start, despite I think there was a couple of spins, it was clean.
Ian did
by
manage to
previous
flip.
sprint race standards, it was clean.
Yeah, which says a lot when a car still flipped.
Exactly. I think it's a weird one. You'd expect it to be carnage in turn one just because of the pace. Like it's a very tricky corner in race pace anyway. So just from the start, no chance. But it was okay. We made it through. I made it through.
Most people made it through. I think there was only a few, but yeah, I mean, even still, you've got 2 weeks to prepare for Road America. So if you don't know the circuit by now, you have plenty of time to learn it before next time out. And one thing that I am actually interested to hear your thoughts on is obviously we haven't seen Riley turn up in the championship for a little while. It's been a few rounds since he was last here. Obviously what that means is you're now actually in the lead of the championship. I believe it would go yourself, and then I just want to see, maybe the standings are already up. They're not. Helpful. It would be yourself, then I think Rowley. I think Rowley picked up more than 9 points today. So it should be yourself, then Rowley for the championship, followed off by Riley Jacob. Are you worried at all about your teammate maybe stealing the win, or are you sort of pretty comfortable now that you're
race by race? I'm not really like you can't really take any lead for granted. So just kind of doing your best race by race. And then obviously Riley could come back, and we know how quick he is.
Yeah.
So...
Well, if you build up too much of a gap, we only have 3 more races to go. So if you can win out at Road America or win out at Canada, he's not really going to have much of a chance to come back. So be interesting to see. But Ben, mate, I won't leave you for too much longer. I'm sure you need food and a drink and all the other good stuff. And, mate, we'll see you back again, not next week, but the week after for Road America. And I'm sure it's going to be an exciting one for yourself.
Yes, interesting is what I'll say.
And before we let you go, mate, is there anyone you want to give a shout out
to? Just the team again, really. I don't even know how everyone else in the team finished, to be honest. I'm going to hope good, but I don't know. I think in the feature race, I did see 2 orange cars dropping down the relative at the start, so I don't know what happened. Hopefully they come back stronger at Road America, but not strong enough to beat me.
It's always, I want to be the best in my team.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to see that that's always always an attitude that stays even in sim racing. But yes, mate, I'll let you go. And again, congratulations for yourself for both the win here in the win in the sprint and then a 2nd place in the feature.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we're going to bring in Oyvind Haugland. And Oyvind, my friend, welcome into the box once again. It's been a while since we've last talked. But, you pick up a win here in the main, which, I mean, once you got out in front, I think it was close between yourself and Ben. It definitely wasn't easy, but after the pit lane, it sort of seemed to go in your favor. And then you pick up P2 in the sprint on a last lap move on Jacob into the last corner of the last lap, I should say. And, once again, spice things up here at the IFL. What were your thoughts on both races?
First of all, I think I squeezed Jacob a little bit too much in the last corner there. So I had to apologize to him and check, did I squeeze you? And he was like, yeah, a little bit. So apologize for that. Yeah, it was a very fun race. So it was my setup was not ideal for the medium tires, that's for sure. So I was struggling quite a bit through the first half of the race, and then we had a little bit of a touch into the pit entry with Ben.
Mm-hmm.
But that's of course that's difficult as well because it's quite bumpy going in there. So
yeah,
I just quickly remembered, yes, we have a fast repair.
Yes,
so then it
yes, we
wasn't a
do.
problem. But after that, it was smooth sailing, a lot of fun, and the sprint race is the favorite one. You should just have 3 sprint races instead.
Yeah, yeah, no, I honestly, I think I could see that being really entertaining, but also very chaotic.
Very random.
I feel like
I would love it.
I feel like whoever wins, like whoever would win the championship would be the driver who survived the most.
Exactly, and that's a own skill.
It is its own skill.
Yeah, so I think that would be fun. So I would look forward
We'll
to something like that.
we'll see if we can maybe get that for next season. Just go, you know what? Everyone loves the sprint races. Let's just do 3 of them in a row. You know, it's nice, quick, and easy. The commentators' voices will die by the end of it, but who cares? And, you know, well, it's all great.
Yeah, it would be brilliant. I think it's a great idea.
Oh, you know, we'll
Oh.
mention it. We'll see what Alex says and see what the other teams say.
I don't know. I don't even know what the ideal tactic would be for that race, but I think it could be quite fun.
I mean,
to do
win.
that. Yeah,
Win
in turn
is...
1. Only in turn 1.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Was absolute. That was a fun sprint race. I had a lot of fun, and I got to give a shout out to Frank Pieser. We had the best. He was 1 lap behind, and he had the smoothest blue flag handling I've ever seen in the SS in the sprint race, I think.
Mhm.
And yeah, that was really impressive. I tried to talk to him, but I'm not sure if he's got the voice chat on. But that was amazing. So well done on him to maneuvering that one.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, especially considering how close the 3 of you were in the sprint, and you know his teammates up ahead. So you're kind of like, is he gonna hold up both of them behind so that Jacob could get the win? Or, but no, it was he seemed to be quite respectful in that regard.
That was really good. I was really impressed. And if he wouldn't, we would have crashed because I was going for it in the sprint race. So that would have been on me.
You kind of had to, though, didn't you? I mean, starting at the back, it's a long way back from P12 up to the lead, so you kind of have to give it everything.
Yeah, I got quite far until I got in. Somebody had a issue in the hairpin, and I got pushed a little bit wide. So I got quite far, and then I had to do it all over again. But that was a lot of fun. I think it was another one of those.
I think it was Fred and Troy colliding in the hairpin, which, you know.
And none of them, it's like there was nothing they could do. That was just something that happened. So it was quite funny to look at.
But so hey, I mean, even still, you know, you pick up a good chunk of points, and the one thing I am curious about, and feel free to not say anything, but of course we know that yourself and Riley Jacob, you two are, you know, that is the Racing Lab team. Is Riley going to come back for the last 3 rounds?
I hope so. So first of all, we just got to give a shout out to everybody in the Discord. So Riley, he won the Grand Prix series for iRacing last year, and he's now doing setups for I think it's Pure Driving School.
Okay.
Pure Driving. Driving School.
Yeah.
And he's got some kick-ass setups that he's really busting his butt to get together. So if anyone needs good setup, go there. But hopefully I can get it back for the last couple of races, so we can give Ben and Rolly a little bit of a challenge with the constructors, and maybe catch up to them and win the whole competition. But I hope so. If not, we have the backup, the super quick Jon Petter. He was unfortunately away, so we've been traveling quite a bit, all of us. We've been struggling. I haven't been here for like a month, so I think I'm going to be able to get him back for the last couple of races.
Well, there's only 3 points between yourself and him, so if he doesn't show up for the next round, you're ahead.
Yeah, then he has to come back.
Yeah, so exactly.
And how many races is left now?
3 more races, and there is a gap of, trying to do the math on it, but my brain is not working. I want to say 17 points between Riley and Ben, which means it is 20 points between yourself and Ben. for the championship. So top 4 separated by 20 points.
All right.
Close.
So I actually have a chance to catch Ben then.
If you do like you've done today, yeah, yeah, it looks pretty good.
Excellent.
Obviously, want to take home the sprint race win as well.
Yeah.
Although I will say we do have to. Sorry, I may have to cut this one a little bit short just because Jacob's a bit pressed for time. So we'll bring him in here as well. Why not? Jacob, mate, 3rd place on the sprint. Congratulations, first of all. However, anything you want to mention to Oyvind about the pass at the end? Just while both of you are here, why not? Let's get a little bit of spice for the stream.
Well, we had a chat in the cool down room, and
okay.
we're all good. But yeah, no, it was good hard racing there towards the end. Last lap, everyone, I don't blame him at all. I would have done the same thing. Go for everything. I think he said he locked up a little bit. Went a little deeper than he intended to, but hey, shit happens, and it made for an exciting finish, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I managed to catch the end of it after we saw Ben cross the line, and it meant that, you could come through and, pick up that P3, and, that's more points again back in the way of the Bisa Racing team, which is always a good thing. And hey, it's a podium. At the end of the day, you've got one. Is this, remind me again, is this the first podium you've had in the sprint, or have you had another one before?
This is actually the second this season. Picked up P2 at Zandvoort.
Yeah, that was it. I had a feeling there was another one. I was like, because when we were talking about sort of, during the sprint race, how you were leading, and I was like, I swear he's done this before, but I can't remember what race. And yeah, Zandvoort, that would have been the one with the we don't talk about the start at Zandvoort. That's we just leave that. We leave that as is. The start of the sprint race at Zandvoort never happened. It was a rolling start all along. But
yeah, I don't remember a start really.
But Jacob, mate, I mean, congratulations to yourself picking up a sprint 3rd place, and maybe a little bit unlucky, but hey, at the end of the day, these things happen. But is there any sort of thoughts you have moving on later into the season? How's your season gone so far?
Well, I mean, we've gotten lucky a couple times here. To be on the podium twice has been really good. And hard to not feel a little hard done in the moment. With the wind slipping through your fingers, but just happy to be up on the steps. It's good points, especially since had to miss a couple races this season, so a little behind in the championship. So I'd say the season hasn't gone totally to plan, but I think we've done some really good work to salvage what we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, it means that you're going to come back stronger next season, we hope. You two, both yourself and Frank, proving to be almost veterans of the IFL at this point. So, it's always nice to see the familiar names back again. People like yourself and Frederick who have been here pretty much since the start. It's always really cool to see. And I hope it continues. I hope we continue seeing the Bisas here, and eventually, who knows, maybe they can start competing for the top steps as well. As a team, competing for the championship wins would be really cool. But I know, obviously, you are a little bit pressed for time with an appointment, so I will we'll leave it here for now, unless you have any closing thoughts and anyone you want to give a shout out to.
Oh yeah, we'll be back next year. Hopefully stronger. We're starting our B team with Scuderia Bizio this season. Bringing more drivers into the fold, I think, helps get more perspectives on setups and whatnot. So hopefully we'll can keep closing that gap to the top guys. But yeah, shout out again to my beautiful fiance who puts up with all my racing and me running a little late to this appointment. So,
yeah.
Thanks, Alyssa, and see y'all.
Absolutely no worries. Cheers, Jake. And Oyvind, mate. Sorry about cutting you off a little bit there, but
Oh, that was
hey,
cool.
yeah, we're back.
Cut
But
me
yeah,
off like I cut off
Jacob
Jacob
at
in
the
the last
end, yeah. But hey, I mean, it's all fair in love and war, isn't it? It's all fair games when you're on the track, and as long as you don't make any contact, I don't think anyone really minds too much. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be really cool. Next round out is in 2 weeks at Road America. What do you think about Road America as a circuit for these cars?
Oh, damn it. I think I'm in Rome.
Are you in Rome?
Oh, damn it.
Oh no.
But I'm going to tell Riley because that's really close to where he lives. So I think he's going to race that one.
I mean, yeah, that's basically a home race for him then, isn't it?
Exactly.
So,
So there the championships went straight out the window.
Unfortunate.
But it doesn't really matter. I'm going to ask Riley to just take out all of them. We'll be fine.
Just both Riley, Rowley, Ben all get DNFs. Guanluca
Exactly.
doesn't really put any pressure on you, and all's good.
Yeah, perfect. I think
Get the
we'll
voodoo
see.
dolls out.
Yeah, they had opposite effect, so they're gone.
Oh, okay. But
So-
yes, I mean, Road Americas. It's going to be an interesting one for sure, though.
Yeah, I think it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a lot of crashing.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue it's narrower than Suzuka, I think, as a circuit.
Yeah.
So the fact that we had crashes in a straight line at Suzuka, I dread to think what the start of the sprint is going to be like at Road America. But then we have Canada and the Brazilian Grand Prix circuits after that. So I'm sure we're going to see lots of crashing into the Wall of Champions, and also maybe we can recreate what happened a couple seasons ago in the F1. I believe it was F1 Season 3 with the safety car restart, where everyone coming out of, I believe it was like turn 3 or turn 4 before the straight, everyone just spun in unison.
Yeah.
It was just like a chain reaction.
I think I was in that race. That was crazy, like 36 degrees in craziness.
Yeah, everyone just had ice cold tires the entire time because of the amount of safety cars.
Oh, that's kind of imagine. But I do have one. So like Canada, I think Hannes is going to do really well.
Oh, really?
He's freaky fast there, so that's going to be interesting to see.
Okay.
And I think Brazil, I'm going to win myself.
Oh, okay. We've got some predictions. Let's go. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So
hope Hannes hears this because he knows he's quick there.
So Hannes wins Canada. You win Brazil. Who's taking the win at Road America?
Oh, Riley.
If he turns up,
deal.
Riley's winning at Road America. Okay, cool.
He's the only one I know that's been racing on Road America and enjoyed it.
Right. Everyone else dislikes the circuit or just doesn't race it.
Yeah, I think
that's fair enough.
Yeah, and I think Ben is going to be there all the whole time and probably just farm the points and win. So he's become really quick.
Yes,
That's,
yeah, absolutely.
Good on him.
I mean, it's cool to see more people battling for the lead, right? That's what you want.
Exactly.
Especially you guys in the Racing Labs team. You started off the season 1-2 almost every race, and then these Intense guys have started to push more and started to catch up to the back. I mean, Ben's doing great, keeping you guys honest now as well, and it's really cool to see. I think everyone has stepped up massively throughout the season, and massive congratulations to every single one of you. You've all done an amazing job in this season, making it arguably one of the best seasons that I've had commentating F1. So, give yourself a round of applause for that one. Any drivers who are currently listening, and. Oyvind, mate, I won't keep you for too much longer because I'm sure you've got food to get and drinks.
Yeah,
and
I got a really
patient
girlfriend waiting to have dinner.
Yeah.
So.
And we don't want her getting hangry, so
I would appreciate if that didn't happen. She's been waiting for 2.5 hours, so yeah. Awesome girl.
Yeah,
She hasn't killed me yet.
we'll let you go. And before we let you go, is there anyone you sort of want to give a last minute shout out to?
Thank you guys for doing this. It's so cool to have a cool league to race in, and so cool to see all the new people that came in throughout the season, and they just stayed with it. So I look very much forward to the last part of the season. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, absolutely no worries, mate. But we'll let you get on so that your girlfriend doesn't murder you, and you can be back for hopefully more racing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as
Thank you
always,
very
mate,
much.
cheers, buddy. And that will about wrap it up from us here at the IFL. I have been Alyssa. You have been lovely as always, and we'll see you out in 2 weeks' time for Road America, the American Grand Prix, and it is looking to be a good one. Don't go anywhere. You will not